All right, we be streaming. Just got to make sure I don't bounce side to side. I can only bounce forwards and backwards. Figure that one out.
Got product placement.
Although I will say it is a water cup though.
Not Mountain Dew?
It's not Mountain Dew. Well, I needed ice, so I went and got a water.
Sure you did.
Extra ice so I could put my Mountain Dew in the water cup. Always an angle, always an angle.
That's right.
Pre-show stretch in.
Oh, yoga. Ooh, I got a crack.
Yeah. Limber up the fingers. Pushing buttons.
Oh, it was a little early.
So close.
So close. Are we gonna get our social feed today?
It's turned on. So we should. We just got to wait for Always Elvis to hit us up.
He said he's gonna be there.
Okay, wonderful, wonderful. All right, welcome. I figured I would fade the video, then fade the music.
Oh, very nice.
So we don't have
nice.
the abrupt stop like we did last week.
I know, right?
Still one of those things I gotta figure out how to get it to just auto.
There you go.
I do have, because you know how much I love toys, I do have a MIDI controller.
Wow,
and so
look at
ideally, when I get it set up, I can just slide the volume down.
Ooh, fader.
Fader.
Ooh.
The problem is I'm running out of USB plugs on my computer with everything. So
You need an extension.
Still working on it.
Okay.
And then we'll test it, because
we'll test it out.
We should always test as we say.
Yes, of course.
Of course. Today, it's show business, baby.
Hey, it is show business, baby. And that's what we have found with doing a lot of these events. It's all about show business and planning, and you got to get it in your head that this truly is show business when going virtual with your events.
Right. Yep, definitely. And we're going to talk about that and more right after this. All righty. yeah. So it is a show business, and we're not talking
Course.
about like show business Hollywood. However, they are relatable when it comes to creating your own live feed, live production, live show, live event, virtual event. What other keywords
Exactly.
can I throw in there for Google?
Exactly.
May
I
it
think
be
that
in
works out pretty
May it
good.
be in Santa Rosa, Roner Park, or Sonoma County, or the North Bay, California, United States, wherever you are coming from and live streaming, we're going to
Yes.
talk about the fact that you it's not just a video because it's live.
Correct.
It needs to be a little bit more, hence the show business part.
Show business. Yeah. And I mean, I think, even when we say, a lot of times we say show, we refer to these things as a show. And I think sometimes that might be a little intimidating for people because people go, oh, no, I don't want to do a show, not a show. I want to do an event. Well, it really is a show. And so when we start with anything, it's all about number one, planning. And we've talked about this many times. Everybody kind of thinks that, well, it's just a virtual event and we can just do it. And we can toss that together. No problem. We'll just do a little something. And yeah, that's it. Let's just do it. Well, it doesn't really work that way. If you think about a show, a real show, a TV show, or anything like that, there is a lot of planning that goes into that. A lot of technical, a lot of planning. So, for anything that we're doing, we like to have at least 2 months in advance. Um, and that may seem like, well, that's a lot of time. What are you doing with all that time? Well, you would be surprised how many little details come up through the process. And we always talk about the run of the show, kind of starting there with a draft one to have that run of the show, because that's when you're going to find out how are things really fitting together. Does the show flow correctly? And is it really entertaining? Because we're virtual now. We're not live anymore. You can't be talking to your friend at the table, and doing all these things at these live events,
That's
in
yeah,
person
kind of
events.
keeping your attention while you're
Yes.
there. It's yeah. The other thing I was gonna say is that there is also a lot of times things don't always translate. So if you're trying to take something
Yeah.
that was a live in-person show, they don't always translate. So if you're replicating what you've been doing live and you're doing it virtual, I think a lot of stuff translates, but a lot of times it
Hmm.
doesn't. So just kind of going back to that run of the show is actually doing a pre-rehearsal not just before the show goes live, but well before,
Yes.
so that you can identify that, oh, conceptually, I thought this was going to work, but it's not working now. And it just
Yeah.
gives you enough buffer time in order to make those
Yes.
adjustments because there's always adjustments that need to be made.
There's always adjustments no matter what. And, everybody's getting used to the virtual landscape and, taking things from that live in person event and switching it to virtual. They know that's what they need to do. They're trying to make it as entertaining as possible because, I mean, like I said, the show business piece of it, yeah, when you have that in person event, it's usually pretty easy. You've probably been doing it for a couple of years. Maybe if it's an ongoing event, yep, this is what we do. We do this, and then we have this, and we have this entertainment, and it's all good, and everybody mingles, and ooh, it's super fun. But this is like you really have to think about it as a show, not just a virtual event, but a show that you are putting on. So yeah, we've talked about the run of the show many times. All these little things that kind of happen as we go along, and like you said, kind of putting the pieces together and what flows, what doesn't. And sometimes you don't know that until you actually kind of do a run through and you kind of see how everything fits. And we've had that happen where you start doing something, you go, okay, it looks great on paper, and then you start going and you're like, well, that doesn't make sense. That would be better if it started earlier, or maybe this person needs to be here. And so I think that pre-planning is absolutely key for a successful virtual event, making it the show.
Right. And part of that is part of that pre-planning and run of the show is also identifying who's going to be the MC. And so
Yes.
the MC, I think, while very important in a live in-person event, when you're doing virtual, one, it's very different. We've talked about this from the MC's
Oh
point of
yeah.
view. they're staring into a camera. That is very different. It's really hard to read the audience right now,
Yes, it is.
staring at the camera, because I'm not even looking at you as much in order to make
Right?
eye contact with the camera, which is the audience.
That's right.
And
Exactly.
so that MC one needs to be comfortable talking and holding the energy throughout the
Yes.
show. I think it puts extra emphasis, extra on the MC
Yes.
to perform.
Oh, absolutely. And we've talked about this too, where in it maybe in an in-person event, you wouldn't necessarily be up there saying, okay, coming up in just a little bit, we've got this great entertainment. But that's something you would hear in a show. Hey, Ellen on TV. Hey, coming up, we've got blah 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 blah. Because you want to keep people there. So this is what that mentality of keeping the idea that this is a show, and like you said, having that MC be referencing that, hey, we've got some exciting stuff coming up. Here's what's coming up. You don't want to miss it. So right now we're going to do this, but we've got this coming up and it's going to be great. So I think that's a little bit of a difference than in an in-person event.
Right. Very much so. Very much so.
Yep, I think so. Let's see,
Yeah.
what do we have on here? Oh, having a script.
Ooh,
That's
a
another
script. What is that?
script. And
And why
we've
is it
referenced
important?
well, we referenced this, we've referenced this many times in a lot of our shows, but having that script ahead of time, and that's not just, okay, we've got it the day before the event. No, you're going to need that well before that, that goes along with the run of the show, doing those practice runs. How does everything fit? Does the MC or the person who's talking, do they have all of the information? So a lot of times that happens where people just kind of forget, and then the MC goes, "Oh, I did. What am I supposed to talk about? What's that about? I'm not sure." And so sometimes we forget. But having that full script ahead of time is really it's really going to help the MC, number one, get really comfortable, know what they're going to be saying, know what's coming up next, so they feel like, yeah, this is no problem. I got this. And then just having that plan ahead of time, because things will change. So
Correct. And part of the MC that we've talked about also, and I think we did a whole show
we
on
did.
kind of the MC, and script writing, what type of content should be in it, making sure that if there's a URL or a phone number that needs to be called out, that you
Yes.
have that. And I remember you talking about your 3x5 cards. So
Yeah.
you're not
Hmm.
actually writing necessarily a full script that you're going to memorize, but it's having those bullet points. And one of the things that I thought was a great idea in that other show was having a card that was highlighted or tagged in some way, so that it was kind of your fallback card, or it had that pertinent information that you wanted to
Yes.
have on hand all the time.
Yeah, because a lot of times we're repeating the information that maybe you're giving, especially if it's a fundraiser. You want to repeat what's the benefit to giving, what is it going to, who are the sponsors. Got to give those sponsors that love, because this is one of the ways we can do this really really well with the virtual events, is giving lots of love to our sponsors. So having those cards all ready to go, and knowing that you can just flip right back to them whenever you need filler, or where it's in the script several different times, instead of having all these different cards, you can just have one that's maybe got a pink highlight at the top, and you can just grab that really quick and be ready to go. So I think that's really important, and we've talked about that with the scripts too, and not necessarily just reading word for word. And this again is where you're gonna need that MC who is an entertainer. You need somebody who's going to be entertaining, to really keep the audience. And it almost doesn't even matter what the content is. Even if it's very serious content, you still need someone who's going to be very engaging, likable, authentic, all of those things, to keep the interest of your crowd, and not the monotone. I know a lot of times people want to get their key people in there, and they're like, oh yeah, we want him in there to do the whole show, and you're like, well, maybe not, but
Yeah,
maybe a small
even
part.
if they are the president of the board, it may, you may want to rethink who you're gonna do.
Yes,
Um,
the
Always
MCA,
Elvis
yeah.
is in the house. I don't
All right,
have the link, but
good,
he is on Facebook. So thank you, Always
awesome.
Elvis, for showing up.
Yay, Elvis!
Always
Elvis is here.
appreciate it.
We always appreciate it, exactly.
Always appreciate it.
um, Yeah, no, so we've talked about planning, we've talked about all kinds of stuff. One of the things that you always do with every single one of the guests, we're using vMix. You've got those call-ins to different people, and no matter what we're really using, if you're going to be pulling in a feed from somewhere, someone's camera at home, we need those tech checks. You are great. You get on there with those folks and say, okay, look, here's what we're going to need. We're going to need you to move over a little bit. No, move over this way. What's going on in the background? What do you got going on? Or your audio, all of those things. So these are all things that need to take place way ahead of time so that you're not at the last minute trying to figure out, uh-oh, tech's not
Oh,
working. What do we do
like
now?
headphones. When I
Right.
was on vacation this weekend, I left my earbuds
Uh-oh.
at the house, and so that's why I'm having to mute my microphone while Sue's talking so that we don't get feedback through, but I still think something's creeping in. So these are tech
Yeah.
check is really
Tech
important
check.
for these type of events so that
Yes.
one, we know the technology works, and when motorcycles drive by, it's like, we do the best we can. But also, I think it's really important from a end user. A lot of people, this is new. They're used to being on Zoom per se.
Yeah.
However, they're not having to hold the audience attention, and
Yes.
so doing
Exactly.
that check and walking them through, okay, this is what to expect. This is kind of when you step on stage, if you will, is very helpful. It helps calm them down a little bit also, so they have a little muscle memory of what to expect on the day of the event. So really important to have that tech check.
Yeah, that's just one tech check that you do. And then we also will always do a full rehearsal with, the whole thing with all of the branding, all of the transitions into recorded videos, transitions to different speakers, different callers, transitions from, two speakers to one speaker, all of those things. We do a full run through. But what we have found, and this is going to be your little super tip for the day, super tip alert, is rather than getting on and having to do, really have you as a tech person there to do all of the tech, making sure we're going from recorded thing and this and that, is to just get on a Zoom call and have whoever's going to be on that event just come onto a Zoom call, and y'all just have your scripts and your roles and what you're going to do, and you run through it. That is, you are going to identify so many different things right off the bat that you're going to be like, well, that doesn't really work. Or, well, what's this? Well, what's the next thing? Oh, okay. All right. Well, that doesn't make sense. Let's move that here. And following that run of the show, but just doing it on a Zoom call, really easy to get through it. And then when you get to that final rehearsal, it's it's totally easy. You run through it. You know everything's working. You know what's coming up. You've seen all the branding. You've seen all of what the slides are, what the recorded videos are, and you're ready to rock and roll for the live event. So that's a little, oh, the applause, the applause.
The
Thank you, thank
applause,
you.
the applause. It's so good. It's so real.
It's so real.
And this is interesting because I don't have the earbuds in, so it almost sounds like there's a whistle after you talk, and I thought it was feedback, but then I realized it's such a nice day. We're in the high 70s here in Sonoma
Yes, we
County.
are.
I'm assuming you have the sliding door open
Oh, I do.
and
Oh, it's the
the
birds.
birds. I keep on hearing this like light chip, chirp, 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 and I'm like, is there like some audio feedback that's like making her
I
all of her words
see.
like it sounds like a whistle though.
See, now if we had a tech check, you would have said, "What's
Yeah.
all that whistling going on in the background?" Right? But no, I have my I have my window open. I sat outside today. It was absolutely gorgeous. I got a little color. Oh, so nice. So,
Very nice.
I,
Yes, I've got a walk in. I'm hoping to get another walk in after this.
yes, me too.
But yeah, so there's more though, I imagine. Even after
Yeah.
the super tip, or is the super tip
Oh, I
the
mean,
super tip?
well, that's the super tip. We've gone into each one of these things in absolute detail in most of our shows, but I think just keeping in mind when you're doing the planning, once again, it is show business.
Right.
When it comes to technical items, making sure that all of the technical things work. You think about a television set and all of the different key players and equipment and everything. We've talked about this where you're, people asking questions during an event where maybe there's you've got some chat, that people are typing in the chat. Well, how is that question going to get to the presenter or whomever when you're in a real life situation? Say you're at the Ellen show and they've got the mic, and they say, okay, let's go out to the audience, and they truck on out to the audience and they go find somebody to talk to. They've got a mic that's working, they've got a camera person that's going to go there. They figured out how that's all going to work. This is the same thing, it just happens to be virtual. So a lot of times we'll do an event where there is a chat portion, texting, typing in, and how is that information going to get to the MC or the speaker, those types of things? Because sometimes it doesn't necessarily show up like on a Zoom call where you've got a chat on the side, because we're doing a show. So you don't always have that chat showing up, and a lot of times you don't want all of the chat showing up on your
Right, which is
show.
also part of like, okay, depending on how many people you expect to show up for an event, how many moderators do you need? How are you
Exactly.
going to handle that? And all those
Right.
types of things. The other thing I think that's really important is because this is new for a lot of people. And okay, the show date is, let's say it's April 10th, as an example. We're at the end of February. We've got March. We got April. Okay, yeah,
Sure.
okay. We got a long time. It feels like a long time.
Hmm.
And then things don't get done. So instead of knowing that your show date is April 10th, you may say, okay, 2 weeks prior to that, and I'm just going to say March 15th to make it easy on my
Right.
brain,
Right.
is March 15th is our drop dead date for everything. And it
Everything.
not only helps everybody involved, because again, if you're going through and doing the tech check, you can actually do it as if the show was live and people can
Yes.
figure out what their piece is. You get to work on all the behind the scenes, like how are you going to share information, how many moderators. You can test everything out. And there's always going to be some tweaks,
Right.
but you want to do that at least a
Ahead of
couple of
time.
weeks ahead of time so you
Yes.
can make those minor tweaks. And I think a lot of people figure, oh, well, we got 2 months to figure this out, and then nothing happens.
Right. Yeah. I know.
And
That's
then
true.
everybody's kind of scrambling, which it creates stress not only for the people putting on the event, but then on the back end for the people that have to produce
Right.
it and build it out. Is there's all these different moving blocks. You think of Saturday Night Live. That is
Right.
got to be a stressful job because they're literally making changes on the fly. If a
Right.
skit goes long, if a monologue, then they got to cut and they got to figure out how to fit it in the network. And we're trying to minimize as much of that stress and as much of that
Right.
last minute. And so I think just mentally preparing yourself that, okay, even though the show date is April 10th, as an example, we're going to have a hard stop date for March 15th
Yes.
where all assets, everything's been approved, and we're
Right.
ready to rock and roll.
Well, yeah, and like you said, doing that rehearsal at least 2 weeks ahead of time. We've done them a week ahead of time before, but inevitably, like you said, there is always some kind of last minute change, whatever, and we really don't want to be doing those right up to, right before the event. It's just stressful for everyone. You want to know that everything is in place. You can retest it again, make sure that everything's correct, double check whatever changes you made. Are they correct? Did we follow what we said we were going to do? These are the changes we all agreed to, and make sure that you have that, because you don't want to then go into your event, go live, and then one person says, oh, that's the wrong thing, that's the wrong video, and we've had that happen. So you want to find these things ahead of time, and make sure you get several eyeballs on it, just like anything else. Proofreading or looking at, doing anything like that, you get some more eyes on it, and inevitably you're going to have somebody that says, oh, we forgot this. Oh, you know what, we need to add this in.
Right.
This
Yep.
Well, this isn't the right wording. This Our sponsor's not going to be happy about that. So so we need to make sure that everybody's happy, so because there's
Right.
plenty of time to get that all dialed in before the live event.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect. And
So
yeah, and if mentally, if people treat it like a live show, because I think that's more relatable for people, right? It's like,
yeah.
oh, TV, what are all the different, you got to have your set in place, you got to have the lighting in place, the camera's got to be in place. People have to know their lines, who goes first, who goes second. And so,
Exactly.
kind of thinking about that, it's very similar. And I think
Hmm.
for people who conceptually have never done a live show and they don't know what's involved, just imagine what it would take to put on an actual TV show live, such as Saturday Night Live. And
Right.
that's essentially what you're doing, but it's done virtually versus being in a studio.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're exactly right on with that. It's showbiz, baby.
It's showbiz, baby. And I
And
think
you're a
with,
star.
you're the star.
You star.
You the star. Actually, it's
Yeah, right? Oh,
superstar.
superstar. Yes. Speaking of Saturday Night Live.
All
Oh man.
right. I
So
think that's it. Yes.
yeah, I
You
think
have
that's
the
it.
notes.
I've got the notes. I think we covered what we had what we had to cover, and as always, we'd love your feedback. If you guys have suggestions or things that you've done that have been successful, things maybe we haven't thought of, we would love to hear about those. Please put them in the chat, in the comments below, and of course, check out our other videos, our prior shows, because a lot of that we referenced and we've gone into greater detail with a lot of those different topics. So we'd love to have you watch those as well.
All right. With that, I think we can log off and we will be back next Tuesday at 4 p.m. Pacific time.
Yes, we will. See you then.
All right. Take care, everybody.
Bye.